Oh, Buster, that's my spot, buddy. There. So the seed catalogs have started coming in. It's barely December. And what I'm tempted to do is leaf through and make a big giant list, and I often actually place my order before Christmas or slightly after Christmas. But the smarter thing to do is to look back and see what I actually used this past year and take stock of what I still have. I actually still have a giant amount of seeds. This is vegetables and flowers. I grow food for our family of 4 in 3 main growing spaces. We do have a small greenhouse. And I also bring cut flowers to 2 small local farmers markets. So what I want to do today, with Buster's help apparently, is look back at what I actually grew, what I actually used over this past growing season. The very first things that bloomed for me this year are daffodils. That's not a surprise. My first daffodils I got on April 14th, and I don't sell cut daffodils really. I think I had a few mixed into bouquets, but daffodils can be tricky because they exude a sap when you pull them, which can cause other flowers to wilt a lot quicker. So it's harder to incorporate them into mixed bouquets. Now what you can do is cut them, leave them in their own vase or bucket of water for, I think the rule is about 2 hours, and then you can mix them in with other things as long as you don't recut the stems, which is something you also have to tell your customers if you're going to sell these. But regardless, I have a lot of really nice varieties. I have some doubles. I know this one particular is called Ice King. It's just gorgeous. I had Orange Juice was a new one to me, this one. La Torche, and a double Dutch mix too, of which I don't know the varieties of those, but I have quite a lot of little single ones too. So I love having cut daffodils in my own home, and I will mix some into tulip bunches as well, but I didn't see my first tulips until looks like April 30th. Which was pretty early this year. Tulips are normally later on in May for us. So I should say we are Zone 6, Eastern Canada, Nova Scotia to be more precise. And we get pretty harsh winters. It's not consistent. We tend to get a lot of snow, a lot of freezing and thawing, but at least when we have snow cover, that's not too harmful to the plants that we have overwintering. And tulips and daffodils both grow really well for us here, as long as they don't get eaten by deer. But I know that's not a problem that's specific to here. And I think I planted around 1,200 tulips last year, and most of them were a success. The only ones that weren't a success were some really nice double white ones that I had, and that is because we got a heavy rain when the buds were just starting to show, and they got splattered with mud, and the mud never came off. And that meant that as the buds started to open, there was mud in between all the little petals, and they just weren't salvageable. So they were a loss. I did get, I think, one variety, which was a really, really nice pale pink double. They were really, really nice, but the majority of my light colored doubles were a complete loss. So I actually ordered almost no doubles this year. So after the tulips and daffodils, I had ranunculus starting to bloom, and this year was fantastic for ranunculus. I actually planted some inside my greenhouse. So fall of 2022, I planted, I think in November, I planted just sprouted ranunculus corms. There was no foliage yet, but they had started growing roots. I planted them into the ground of my greenhouse. This is an unheated, tiny little greenhouse that's only 6 by 9 feet. They survived, and they bloomed about 2 weeks before my other ones, the ones that I started in the spring and then planted outside. So that was great. I only wish I had more space, and I had planted, nicer varieties out there. I didn't know if they would survive, so I actually planted ranunculus that I had bought a 1.5 years earlier. So they missed an entire growing season, and they were just fine. I didn't actually end up liking it was Rhinette Red and Rhinette Orange, and some of them were just a little bit messed up. I wasn't loving the green centers on those, but as far as being an experiment, it was a complete success. Oh, and the colors of the ranunculus that I had outside were just fantastic. They bloomed right up until I think about the end of June, so I had a full month of ranunculus. I had white and cream, I had the nice bright yellows and oranges and reds, and I had a lot of nice little pastel ones too. And I saved all of my corms from last year too. So hopefully they're nice and strong and I'll be able to get a good harvest off of all those for next year, because the only new ones I bought were those dark burgundy ones. So going along with my ranunculus, I had, well, the peonies bloomed more towards the end of June, I think. I had anemones, I had, a perennial aquilegia. Common name for those are columbine. I used those for the first time this year and they were really great. I really liked those. I'm seeing some yarrow in this picture too, some mint, some oregano, and nigella. So we're barely to the end of June here, but there's a lot happening. Lots of peonies. And pennycress. The cress started to bloom at the end of June too. That was really great. I also had just little bits of lupins. I see a perennial dianthus in there too. Larkspur. For some reason, I don't have a ton of pictures of larkspur, but I had buckets. I was harvesting larkspur by the bucketful. And I sold a whole bunch wholesale too. It was really good, and I actually ended up drying quite a bit too. So larkspur was another fantastic filler that I used a lot of in June. And another surprising one for me was actually Godetia or Clarkia. They did pretty well, but a little bit of bug damage. But I'm going to do that one again this year for sure, because they had an incredible vase life, 2 weeks plus, as long as you harvested them at the right stage. And the yarrow was all planted about 1.5 years ago. So that has been growing through the winter. It's easily perennial here. It's basically a weed. So that was fine. Feverfew. I had some feverfew that overwintered for the second year too, and I planted a little bit new, but I don't think I had new seed this year. So that was, feverfew was all from the year before. We are now into July. July we had zinnias, we had lilies, and I have lots of different varieties of lilies. Everything from dark pink to a nice light creamy yellow. That buttery color was gorgeous. That was a new one this year. And then towards the end of the month, we started to get a lot of Rudbeckia too, which seemed early to me. I really was not ready for those fall colors to pop up. The sunflowers were blooming. I still had some larkspur, which was a bit of a surprise. I got a second flush off of some of them. Statice, cosmos, Chinese forget-me-nots, these are all fantastic. The annual phlox started to bloom in early July. And lavender was really good this year. I actually got 2 nice cuts out of lavender. I only have about 20 plants, but they really produced for me this year. So at this point, we have had a couple of very, very significant rainfall events, and I did start to lose a lot of crops. So there's not a whole lot brand new that's blooming at this point. Some of my favorite bouquets, though, are from this mid-July point with those buttery yellow lilies. The blue Chinese forget-me-nots were so nice, and even the Rudbeckia. I had some nice snapdragons starting to bloom. The white rose lilies. I'm looking at a photo here that has a white rose lily. It has a rhingium, which I grew from seed last year, but it is a perennial. I'm seeing purple and pink statice and one of those spider chrysanthemum mix asters, which I am definitely going to try again next year. So I think the only thing that I haven't mentioned yet are the dahlias. I did get a few dahlias. I don't grow a lot. I think I had somewhere between 20 and 30 plants this year. And last year was a terrible year for them, so the tubers weren't the best quality. But when I dug them up this year, they look so much better. And I am very shortly actually placing an order for a whole bunch more for next year. So that is very exciting. I grew a little bit of celosia, mostly old seed. I need way more of that next year. What I did grow was really nice. I need a lot more zinnias. I got really excited about all different kinds of filler, and I didn't really grow enough big punchy flowers. I feel like I did that last year too. So that's what I really need to remember when I'm seed shopping. I need zinnias. I need sunflowers. Oh, there's a few things that I grew specifically to dry too. I grew a lot of straw flowers and had a pretty good year with those. Actually, I used a lot of straw flowers. I don't think I have any left. I used them all in my dried flower Christmas ornaments, which I nearly sold out. I think I have 6 left, so that was really good. But straw flowers, larkspur I dried. I grew half a dozen gomphrena plants just to dry. So those didn't actually bloom until September. I think the end of September. I was really pushing it on that one because I started them really late. Oh, Chabot carnations. Those were fantastic. They have the most beautiful smell. Little spray carnations, but they grew really well for me. They had a good height. I need to net them though. They fell over really easily, especially with all the rain that we had. I have a little bit of Lisianthus. We went on vacation in August. Lisianthus were just starting to bloom at the end of August when we got back. So now I only had about 25 plants, so those were mostly just for me. I think I tucked a couple into some bouquets at the end of the month, but I kept most of them. Yeah, so that just about covers every flower I grew in 2023. It was quite a bit. I have whatever's on this list is probably 30 different things, and really I could probably get away with a lot less than that. I need to really prioritize the big focal flowers, right? I have lots of little things, lots of filler, but focal flowers is always what I never have enough of. And I'm just making market bouquets, so I don't really need much other than zinnias and sunflowers. Dahlias I always go back and forth on dahlias because they don't have the greatest face life, but people really love them. So focal flowers in order of when they bloom would be daffodils if you want to use daffodils, tulips, ranunculus, peonies, which are perennials, zinnias, lilies, sunflowers, asters, if I can get them to work. I'm going to try again next year. And then Rudbeckia and dahlias. So that's it. That's going to be my #1 priority, and then somehow we'll try to limit the fillers, although I don't really know how I'm going to do that yet. I love them all, and it is good to get a little bit more than you think you need because some things will fail, as we figured out with the asters this year. So with that recap of basically every single flower I grew in 2023, I can go and make a pot of coffee, not right now because it's 5 p.m. But tomorrow morning I can make a pot of coffee, and with my current seed inventory nearby, I can go through those catalogs and make a list of what I actually want to order for 2024. So thank you everybody for putting up with me sitting here and talking about flowers for 45 minutes or however long I sat here and talked for. Let me know if you want me to do the same thing with my vegetable list, although I really kind of failed at growing a significant amount of vegetables this year. But I got completely carried away with flowers. Who would have thought? So I'm gonna go top up my tea and probably make supper and feed my kids. Do you need supper too? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.